I'm Jeremy Markiz, and this is a series of videos to help kosher your kitchen, to make your kitchen kosher. If you have any questions, definitely put them down below in the comments. Hi, my name is Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and today we are going to kosher my stovetop. So to kosher a glass stovetop like mine here, there are a few steps we have to take. First, we have to clean up the surface thoroughly. I've already done this. I used a razor blade to scrape off any additional food items, and then I cleaned it thoroughly. The second stage is to use the heating elements to turn them up to high to burn off any food particles. We're going to do that in just a minute. We're going to turn it on as high temperature as we can, and then we're going to leave it like that for about 15 or 20 minutes. Lastly, we are going to use that kettle over there to boil water and use it to do irui, kli, boiling hot water from an original source of heat, which that kettle will be. This will allow us to fully kosher this glass top stovetop. You can see as the heating elements turn red, slight amount of steam and food particles are coming off of the top. That's how we know that it is currently koshering. We're implementing the principle bol-o kach polto. How the food is absorbed is the way we remove it. Just as we use the stovetop to heat up the elements, that's the way we remove it as well. Now that the surface has cooled down enough, we placed the kettle on top of one of the heating elements, which is now kosher, so that we can use it for irui kli, boiling hot water coming from an original source, which this kettle will be. We're going to use irui to pour this boiling hot water on those in-between parts, right? The heating elements themselves have already been koshered. That's what we did before. But now with the boiling water, and you can see that it's almost done, we're going to catch these in-between parts and fully kosher this stovetop. Okay, now that the kettle has been is at a rolling boil and has been on the heating element for quite some time, we're going to turn off the heating element, and then we're going to pour boiling water over everything. I've got a couple of towels here just in case, so that we can be careful and not hurt ourselves as well. So I'm going to turn off the heating element. I'm going to try and get every little corner here. Just try really hard not to go too far off the edge. And we know for a fact that this heating element is going to be really hot, so it's going to boil off a little bit. Just try and get the edge here. Okay, now that we've poured all this boiling water, we're going to wait for it to cool down a little bit, and then we're going to wipe it up. But this stovetop is now completely kosher. Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and today we're going to be koshering our large and small pots. This is going to take a few steps, but the first one is to take out the pots and fill them with water. You can see here that we have filled each of these pots almost all the way with water. What we're going to do now is bring them all to a boil. We're going to do this all at the same time, saving ourselves a little bit of time and trouble. What we will need to see is that each pot actually overflows a little bit. In order to be koshered, we want to make sure that the entire surface is covered. So I'm going to fill each one of these up just to the brim so that they can be fully koshered. So they've been on here for just a minute or two, and you can see they're pretty darn full. We're just going to wait until they have a rolling boil, at which point they will be kosher. You can see here on this back one, it is at a rolling boil and starting to spill over. We know that one is now fully kosher on the inside. We could then use it to kosher other things like silverware, but we'll get to that later. This one is starting to boil, as you can see, and is about to spill over. I'm not going to show you the rest because they all look pretty much the same, but at the point that each of these spills over, that is when we know that the pots are kosher. Now you can see behind me, we're pretty much done with kashering our large and small pots using the principle of bolo, kach bolto. The way they absorb is the way we remove the flavor, and we're using pots the way they're meant to be used, by boiling water inside of them. So at this point, these are kosher. We can now use them to kosher or kasher other utensils, silverware, large metal utensils, anything that is subject to the law of hagalah. Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and today we're going to be kashering our metal utensils. Long ones, short ones, doesn't make any difference. We're going to use these large metal pots over here, which I'm going to bring up to a boil right now. And as you can see here, we have completed the boiling, and I have a second pot here as well that's still heating up. And we're going to use this pot, now that at a rolling boil, to place our clean metal utensils in here to be kashered. They have to be fully submerged, and the pot has to continue at a rolling boil. There are a couple of strategies I use to be successful. First of all, I find a long utensil, which I can kasher in parts, which I'm going to show you in a second, so that I can then retrieve the silverware or things like it afterwards, so that the pot doesn't fill up with silverware and I have to clean it all up afterwards in a way that makes no sense. So I like to do a few at a time, pull them out safely, and then do a little bit more. So to start, I'm going to use these tongs. I'm going to kasher them first so that I can then use them to pull things out. As you can see, I've started to put them in, but they won't actually be fully covered. So the best thing to do, and I'm going to use a covering for my hands so I don't burn myself, I'm going to do both sides here. This is how you are able to kasher long materials inside a pot. So now, at a rolling boil, I'm going to start to put in the silverware. I like to do it one at a time. For example, this spatula, if it was even longer than it is here and it wouldn't fit in either way, and there would still be a section in the middle that would be still not covered in water, what you would do is use a pot of water or a kettle to cover that middle part with irui kli rishon, pouring boiling water from a original source. But this one works just fine, and we're going to put it in one half with our matzah thing here, and now the other half, and this is kashered. And that is basically how you kasher utensils, and you're using the boiling pot and continuing to cycle things in and out. I used the tongs to remove the silverware I put in so that I would be able to continue to keep the water at a high temperature, a rolling boil, and to do so safely. And that is how you kasher your metal utensils. Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and I'm going to tell you how to kasher your frying pan. So here is my frying pan. Stainless steel, doesn't have any Teflon coating or anything like that. It's got a sticker, cleaned it on both sides. And now that it's been fully cleaned, we're going to heat it up so that it is kashered. Now, as you know, the principle is bolo kach polto. The way it's used is the way you remove the flavor, which is the halachic principle that we're implementing here. And so what we're going to use is a methodology called libun kal, making it white hot, but in an easier or lighter fashion. Now, some folks would use a blowtorch on something like this because it's on direct heat normally. But I don't have a blowtorch, and it's not particularly safe to do in my apartment, so we're going to use libun kal. Libun kal is a position of Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, an Ashkenazi gloss on the Shulchan Aruch, and he says that if you heat something like this up to a temperature in which it would burn straw, then it will be considered kashered. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the heating element here so that it will start to heat up. And we are going to use, instead of a piece of straw, a piece of newspaper. And I safely flipped the piece of paper over, and you can see that it burned. And I'm going to put another piece of newspaper on here so you can see as well how quickly it burns. That is how you know how hot it is. So now that we have done libun kal, this frying pan is now kosher. It is not the methodology using a blowtorch, but grounded in Rabbi Moshe Israelis's position. Be safe, and we'll move on to the next thing. Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and today we're going to kosher an oven. In order to kosher an oven, you need to clean the inside, the racks, the bottom, the sides, and the top. The principle being, bolo, kach polto. Once the way it is absorbed is the way we remove it. And because the oven is made out of metal, we have the ability to heat the oven up at a high temperature in order to remove the flavors. I've cleaned all of this already to the best of my ability. And now you'll see I'm going to set the temperature to 500 degrees. And it's going to slowly heat up until it hits 500 degrees, which is hot enough in order to kosher it. So now that the oven is at 500 degrees, I'm going to let it sit for somewhere between half an hour to an hour. Make sure that all of that food, or the things that used to be food, become ash. After that, I will clean it one more time after it's cooled down so I don't burn myself. And if there is some additional particles or foods, things that didn't really quite burn up, I might do this again. What I'm going to do then is wrap my racks, because I can only clean them so well. I believe that they're kosher, but I'm going to wrap them in tinfoil anyway, a couple of layers just in case, to make sure that everybody in my household feels comfortable. Hi, I'm Rabbi Jeremy Markiz, and today I'm going to show you how to kosher your metal pans. So the first thing you're going to need to do is have a metal pan. Now, we have dedicated Passover pans, so I'm just going to walk you through what this process looks like. So the first thing you need, as I said, is your metal pan. It needs to be clean and unused for at least 24 hours. And what you're going to do is, like the principle bolo kach polto, the way the halachic flavor comes in is the way it's removed. This is a baking pan, and so we would heat it in the oven in order to remove it. So I'm going to place it in the oven, and I would go turn on the timer at a high temperature, probably around 500 degrees, for about 15, 20, or even 30 minutes until I feel like the pan is sufficiently hot that any potential particulate of food has been destroyed. Well, I didn't actually turn on my oven because of this dedicated Passover pan. That's basically the whole process. Once it's hot and you can remove it safely, the pan is koshered and ready to go for the holiday. The way you kosher a microwave is by placing a glass of water, about 8 ounces or so, and microwaving it so that the water evaporates. Sometime in the middle, you move the glass so that all of the things are covered by that evaporation, making sure not to let the glass evaporate in its entirety. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. Now that the water is about halfway done, we're going to move it. You can see a little bit of steam coming out already. We're trying to be very careful. We're going to move it a little bit. It's probably too hot to touch that way. I probably should not be doing that. I'm going to move it a little bit so that it will kosher the part where it was currently sitting. So we're going to put it in for a few more minutes. And I'm not going to show it to you, but I'm going to be extra careful not to let it entirely evaporate, because that will damage the microwave. And that is how you kosher a microwave.